Can I sit here? The small, trembling voice came from behind the shadow of a chair, and when he looked up, he saw her, a fragile little girl with hollow eyes and a paper-thin frame clutching a worn stuffed bunny. The coffee shop buzzed with chatter and clinking cups, but in that single moment, the world went silent for him. Her voice wasn't just a question, it was a plea, soft and uncertain, the kind of sound that came from someone who had been told, no, too many times. He hesitated, glancing at the empty chair across from him, but something about the way she gripped the bunny tighter made his chest ache. She wasn't just asking for a seat. She was asking to belong, even if only for a few minutes. Before we continue, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of small moments that can change lives forever, please take a second to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Stories Collection. It helps us bring more heart-touching stories like this one to you and others who need them. He nodded, and she climbed into the chair with effort, legs barely reaching the seat's edge. Her hands shook as she set the bunny on the table like it was her only friend. He noticed her pale lips, the way her dark hair clung in uneven strands around her face, and the worn hospital bracelet that peeked from under her sleeve. The coffee in his cup suddenly seemed trivial. He had come here to escape the suffocating silence of his own home, but now he couldn't take his eyes off this small stranger. She kept her head down, whispering something to the bunny. He wanted to ask where her parents were, why she was alone, but something inside told him not to push too hard. The man's name was Nathan Cole. Everyone in the city knew him as the CEO of Cole Industries, the millionaire who had built an empire from scratch. But none of that mattered now. None of the boardrooms, the accolades, or the wealth had been able to fill the gaping hole left when his wife, Emily, passed away 2 years earlier. He lived in a mansion but hadn't slept properly in months. He owned a dozen luxury cars but drove around in silence, unable to bear the music they used to share. He carried grief like a ghost at his side. Seeing this small, sickly girl across from him felt like watching a mirror of the loneliness he knew so well. She finally looked up, big brown eyes meeting his with a hesitance that shattered him. "My name's Lily," she said softly, her voice scratchy as if every word cost her strength. "You don't mind, do you?" I didn't have anywhere else to sit." He told her it was fine, his voice lower than usual, and watched as her tiny fingers picked nervously at the edge of her sleeve. That's when he noticed how thin she was, how her cheeks lacked the roundness most children had. And that bracelet, it wasn't just any hospital tag. It had the name of a children's oncology center. His heart clenched. Over the next few minutes, Lily told him little fragments of her story. Her mother was working 2 jobs and couldn't stay with her at the hospital full-time. Her father wasn't in the picture. She was fighting something called neuroblastoma, a word she said like it was just another part of her, though it was clearly stealing her childhood. She was tired all the time, and some days the treatments made her too weak to hold her bunny. But she smiled when she told him that the bunny's name was Daisy and that Daisy was a good listener. Nathan's eyes stung, and he had to look away. He'd faced corporate crises and ruthless competitors, but nothing in his life had prepared him for the courage of this little girl. When she shyly asked if he had kids, he felt a lump in his throat and simply said no. He didn't tell her about Emily, or about the child they had lost during pregnancy. Some wounds were too raw to share. But Lily, in her quiet innocence, seemed to sense his pain anyway. "You look sad," she whispered. "Like my mommy when she thinks I'm asleep." That afternoon changed something in Nathan. He couldn't stop thinking about Lily after she left with her mother, a tired-looking woman who apologized for her daughter's intrusion. He found himself visiting the hospital, first under the guise of dropping off toys and books for the children's ward, then simply to see Lily's smile light up the room. She started calling him Mr. Nathan, and he started bringing her hot chocolate because she said it made her feel normal, like other kids. But the hospital wasn't a place where happy endings came easily. Nathan watched Lily's condition worsen, saw the way her mother tried to hide tears when doctors explained that the experimental treatment they needed was far beyond what insurance would cover. He didn't even think twice. He covered the entire cost anonymously, knowing the family would never be able to repay him. He didn't do it for gratitude. He did it because Lily had unknowingly reignited a small flicker of hope in his hollow heart. Weeks turned into months. Nathan became a fixture in Lily's life, and she in his. She told him about her dreams, simple ones like riding a bike, eating cotton candy at the fair, or learning to swim. He made as many of them come true as possible, even when she was too weak to stand for long. He rented out an entire pool and hired gentle instructors who held her close as she giggled through the pain. He took her to see fireworks one night and held her hand when the loud sounds scared her. And with every shared moment, the emptiness inside him began to soften. One cold December evening, Lily asked a question that cut him to the core. "Will I get better, Mr. Nathan?" He wanted to tell her yes, that everything would be fine, but the truth weighed heavily on him. He brushed her hair back gently and told her that no matter what happened, she was the bravest person he'd ever known. She smiled at that, but he saw the flicker of fear she tried so hard to hide. Lily's health reached a breaking point in late January. Nathan spent every possible moment at her side in the hospital, reading stories when she couldn't stay awake and holding her hand when the pain became too much. He prayed for a miracle even though he hadn't prayed in years. Then, one icy morning, the doctors told him what he already knew but dreaded to hear: Lily was slipping away. The room was quiet except for the beeping machines and Lily's shallow breaths. Nathan sat close, tears blurring his vision as he whispered stories about all the adventures they'd still take in his dreams. She smiled faintly and whispered, "Thank you for letting me sit with you that day." Moments later, she was gone, clutching Daisy the bunny in her tiny hands. Nathan's world crumbled. He had lost Emily, their unborn child, and now Lily, the little girl who had taught him how to feel again. But as he stood at her funeral, he realized something. Lily's life, though brief, had changed his forever. She had shown him that even in pain, kindness mattered. That love, pure, unselfish love, could heal wounds money never could. Months later, Nathan honored her memory by founding the Lily Foundation, a charity dedicated to helping children with cancer and supporting their families. He poured his heart into the work, visiting hospitals, speaking with parents, and making sure no child felt forgotten. He was no longer the lonely CEO hiding behind walls of wealth and grief. He was a man carrying Lily's light forward. If this story touched your heart even a little, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Stories Collection. These stories are more than just words, they are reminders of how small acts of kindness can change lives. Your support helps us keep sharing them with the world. Special request. In the comments, please write one word that comes to mind when you think about Lily's courage. Do you want me to expand this into the full 6,000-word cinematic version with more detailed scenes, coffee shop details, Lily's treatments, Nathan's past, hospital moments, and the foundation creation? Or should I break it into 3 long parts for a YouTube series? Great. Let's expand it into a more cinematic, detailed version that pulls the audience even deeper into Nathan and Lily's world. Here's the continuation and expansion of the story with more emotion, vivid descriptions, and depth. The day Lily first approached Nathan had been one of those days when life felt unbearably heavy. The coffee shop was tucked into a quiet corner of the city, a place Nathan often escaped to when his house's silence became too suffocating. The smell of roasted coffee beans mingled with the soft hum of conversation and the hiss of the espresso machine, but none of it registered for him. He sat at the corner table, staring blankly at his untouched coffee, his thoughts drifting back to Emily, her laughter, the way she would wrinkle her nose when she teased him, how alive she had been before cancer stole her away. And then, as if fate had decided he'd spent enough time drowning in his own grief, Lily's voice had cut through the fog. He hadn't even noticed her approach until he heard that fragile, almost pleading, "Can I sit here?" It startled him, dragging him back into the present. She looked so small against the vastness of the cafe, her clothes hanging loosely from her thin frame, her shoes scuffed and too big, as though they'd once belonged to someone else. Her big brown eyes looked up at him like he held the power to change her entire day. Nathan had simply nodded, and in that single act, something shifted. Lily was shy at first, clutching the worn stuffed bunny to her chest. The toy's fur was matted, one ear partially torn, but she held it like it was priceless. Nathan couldn't help but notice the small hospital bracelet around her wrist. The sight of it opened a floodgate of memories: Emily's hospital stays, the sterile smell of antiseptic, the crushing fear of loss. He wanted to ask why she was wearing it but decided not to overwhelm her. Instead, he simply listened. She began to speak in a soft, halting voice, telling him about Daisy the bunny, about how she had named it after the flowers she liked because they didn't give up even when it was raining. She explained she was sick but tried to say it in a way that sounded matter of fact, as though illness was simply part of her identity. Nathan sat there, barely breathing, as Lily spoke about her hospital stays and how her mom couldn't always be there because she had to work. "I'm used to it," Lily said quietly, her small shoulders shrugging as though carrying the world was normal for a girl her age. Nathan had to look away, blinking back tears he didn't want her to see. After Lily left that first day, he couldn't stop thinking about her. The coffee shop felt emptier than before, his house even more so. He remembered the way she had hugged Daisy tightly before leaving, the way her mother had rushed in apologizing for her intrusion, and how Lily had waved goodbye as though hoping she'd see him again. The next week, Nathan found himself at the hospital children's oncology wing. At first, he stood awkwardly near the reception desk, not wanting to intrude. But when Lily saw him, her face lit up with such unfiltered joy that he felt something inside him crack open. She ran to him, as much as her small, weak legs would allow, and for the first time in months, Nathan smiled, a real, unguarded smile. Over the following weeks, Nathan became a constant presence in Lily's life. He brought books and toys, often pretending they were gifts from Daisy, so she wouldn't feel overwhelmed by his generosity. He'd sit by her bedside during treatments, holding her hand as she winced through the needles. When her hair began to fall out from the chemotherapy, Nathan brought her the softest knitted hats he could find, pretending they were magical hats that made her look like a superhero. But Nathan also saw the truth, the exhaustion in Lily's mother's eyes, the bills that piled up on the bedside table, the hushed conversations with doctors about treatments they couldn't afford. Nathan didn't think twice. He used his resources quietly, arranging for Lily to receive the best care possible. He made sure her mother didn't have to work extra shifts just to keep the lights on. He never told Lily because he didn't want her to feel like she owed him anything. As winter deepened, Lily grew weaker, yet her spirit never dimmed. She would talk about the things she wanted to do, once she felt better. Ride a bike, go to the beach, see real snow. Nathan made those wishes come true, one by one. He rented a small cabin in the mountains so Lily could see snow for the first time. She was too weak to play in it for long, but the joy on her face as she made one small snow angel would be etched in Nathan's heart forever. And yet, no matter how much he tried to shield her, the reality of her illness loomed heavier with each passing day. He often found himself praying silently in hospital chapels, pleading for a miracle even though his faith had long been shattered by Emily's death. Lily's presence had rekindled something in him, and the thought of losing her felt unbearable. Then came the night when Lily, lying pale and fragile in her hospital bed, asked, "Will I get better, Mr. Nathan?" He sat frozen, searching for words he didn't have. His throat ached as he brushed a strand of hair from her forehead and whispered, "You're the bravest person I've ever met, Lily. No matter what happens, that will never change." She smiled at that, though her eyes betrayed her fear. She reached for his hand, holding it with a strength that surprised him. "You don't look so sad anymore," she said softly. "I like it when you smile." Nathan couldn't hold back the tears then. He kissed her small hand and promised her he'd never forget her, no matter what. When Lily passed away a few weeks later, it felt as though the ground had been pulled from beneath him. He sat by her bedside as her breaths grew shallow, holding her hand just as he had that first day in the coffee shop. She whispered, "Thank you for letting me sit with you that day," and then, with Daisy the bunny clutched tightly in her hands, she slipped away. Nathan's grief was deep, but so was the love Lily had left behind. She had reminded him that even in life's darkest moments, kindness and connection could light a way forward. Nathan knew he couldn't let her story end with her passing. He founded the Lily Foundation, using his wealth and influence to support children battling cancer and their families. The foundation provided treatments, funded research, and ensured no parent ever had to face the same financial and emotional despair Lily's mother had endured. Nathan became the face of hope for countless families, but he always credited Lily as the true inspiration behind it all. Every year on Lily's birthday, Nathan would return to the coffee shop where they first met, sitting at the same corner table with Daisy the bunny resting beside him. He'd watch the world go by and silently thank the little girl who had changed his life forever. If this story touched your heart even a little, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Stories Collection. These stories help us remember what really matters in life. And your support allows us to keep spreading that message to others who need it. Special request. Please comment below with one word that describes Lily's courage. Your words mean more than you know.